Hi folks, in this video I am going to draw the rod support, and this is Module 2 in AEDD 105 CAD Graphics at Southern Maine Community College. Now make sure, if you're in my class, you're also watching the lecture videos. So this week in the lecture we covered orthographic projection, multi-view placement, third angle versus first angle, the ISO standard versus the ANSI standards. We also covered how we choose our views, right? So how do we pick what is the best front view? So make sure you're watching that, and it'll also be extremely helpful to watch that lecture with your discussion question for this week. In this video, I'm just going to go through and draw the drawing. So anyone else that's watching that's not in the class, it'll be helpful if you're just looking from a pure AutoCAD drawing standpoint, right? Okay, so here's the part that we're going to draw. Here it is in 3D, and we are going to draw it orthographically. And you can see that we chose this view as the best front view. If we rotate 90 degrees, right, we're now looking at the part from the top. And then if we rotate 90 degrees this way, we're looking at the part from the right. And that's our front, our right, and our top. Okay, so start a new drawing. This is, in fact, an English drawing, so I'll start with acad.dwt template. Eventually in 105, you folks will create your own templates that'll have your layers and dim styles. We talked about it in the lecture yesterday, so I actually even showed you how to do it. So another good reason to watch it. We also covered workspaces in yesterday's lecture, so how to set up and save a workspace to make your life a little bit easier every time you start up AutoCAD. So there's a lot of good stuff in those lectures. All right, now I'm going to create a couple of layers here going forward. So starting with next week's drawing, Mod 3, I won't create the layers anymore. I'll start with a template that has layers. You don't need to see me create layers over and over again for 16 drawings or whatever number we'll have. But let's do OBJ. What else were we going to need? HID. We'll need center. You'll need a viewport layer. And again, this will be the last time that I create a layout in the drawing. You can refer to this or Mod 1 to see how to do layouts. Actually, I created a separate video just on creating the layout, so I don't really even need to do it in this one, but maybe I will. We'll see how it goes. Anything else I need for layers? No dimensions yet, so we won't be dimensioning till Mod 5. So I think that's it. So we don't need any more. I'm going to crank up my object line. It should be thick. Personally, I like 0.4, not 0.5. And if I'm going to do 0.4 from my object layer, then my secondary layer, so my center and my hidden, I want to be a 2-to-1 ratio, so that'll be 0.2. If you leave it at the default, just choose 0.5 for your object. It's just a little bit too thick for me for mechanical. I like 0.2 better. Right? And maybe we'll add a little bit of color here. So for our center, we'll do magenta, and for our, I had them both selected. And we can do cyan or something here for our hidden layers, and I want the object layer to be current. Now there is not a start point here. There always was for this assignment. In the bottom left was at the absolute coordinate of 2.25 comma 2.25. So that's where I'm going to put it. So I'll start with the line command. I'll use the alias of L. Remember, you could just use the ribbon, the draw panel to do the same thing. But I'll type L, enter. And I'll start at 2.25 comma 2.25. That is an absolute coordinate in the Cartesian coordinate system. Right? Enter. Now, I do not like having the dynamic input on, so I'm going to make sure I turn that off. So I'll come up to the hamburger icon over here. You guys can't see it, but it's the lower. Here, if I go this way, can you see it? Oh, actually, you can, because I have AutoCAD minimized in the window, so you can see it fine. So I'll turn on the button. I'll make the visibility of the button on, and that way I can turn it off. And now I'll get rid of the visibility of the button. All right, so I'm not a big fan of the dynamic input. At the beginning, I would highly recommend leaving it off just to start until you're comfortable with using the tracking systems in AutoCAD. All right, now what are we going to go here? 4, right? So 4 units using direct distance entry. So I'm tracking at 0 degrees. I don't need to have my hand on the cursor anymore for any reason. I'm just going to type 4 enter. Now let me roll my middle mouse button, and I'm going to pan up. For you folks that might be using a Mac, I highly recommend getting a PC mouse so you have that middle mouse button when you're, even if you're using the Mac version. All right, we're going to come up, 2.5. Once again, just tracking at 90, direct distance entry. Now I could track for, oops, I didn't mean to click, U enter for undo. Right, so I just accidentally clicked. I can just type U enter or click undo to undo what I did. So I could use direct distance entry at 180, or I could hover at the beginning of this line and I could track up, and then I could come right back here. I could also just use C to close, right, to the line segment that started the entire operation here. Now if I had stopped somewhere along the way, I wouldn't be able to do that, right? So maybe I had stopped and then re-entered the line command, and you know, if I type C now for close, it would go back to here. That's not what I'm looking for, right? So, but we can go right to that endpoint, and I will right-click my mouse and choose Enter. Now, if you don't if you don't want to have to select Enter every time, if you right-click your mouse for Enter, you could also hit Escape or tap the space bar with your thumb. But what you could do is this. If you go to Options, and we covered this in the lecture yesterday, so I said I'm not going to cover any of this stuff, and here I am. User Preferences, right-click Customization. If a command is in progress, right-click just means Enter. I don't have to right-click and then choose Enter. I just want to right-click to say I'm done. Okay. So now it's pretty cool, right? If I, draw, and I just right-click my mouse, I'm done. Okay. All right. So let's get rid of those. I used a crossing window. We talked about crossing versus window selections in class and lecture. So again, watch those lectures if I haven't harped on that enough. What do we have? I'm going to say L enter. I'm going to hover, track. I'll come up 0.5. Folks, for me, when I'm drawing, what I tend to do is I draw my views in a counterclockwise direction. AutoCAD measures its angles in a counterclockwise direction by default. So what I'll do is I'll draw my front view, as much geometry as I can. I'll move to the right, and then I'll go to the top view, or if there was an auxiliary view, I might work on that too. But usually, if I do have auxiliary views, they're going to be projected off my primary view, so I have to draw those primary views first, right? And then if I have a complex view, even within the view, I tend to draw counterclockwise within the view, right? Starting in the lower left and going around that view. All right, so where are we at now? We're drawing a circle, so C for circle. I want to hover. I think that's what I was saying. I'm trying to track from the midpoint here, but I don't have it as a running O-snap. So I'm going to come down to my O-snaps. I'm going to click and make sure that I turn midpoint on as a running O-snap. Now I can hover at the midpoint here. I can track down, use direct distance entry, and I'll come down 1. This circle has a diameter of 1. I could choose the diameter modifier or tap D. So if I type D, I could enter the diameter, but it's pretty easy to derive the radius from 1 as the diameter, so I could just enter 0.5 here. Now, the other thing we have in the front view would be the fillets here, but I'll tell you, I tend to do all my fillets last, so I'm going to leave these nice square corners. All right, I'll tap L enter, hover, track. We want 2 units between our views. Now, you could have more than 2 units in this case, right, for an English drawing. And, you might say, well, I need more space in between my views, and that's fine as long as you have more or less space between the front and the right and the front and the top, or all your views. So we want the spacing to be the same. 2 tends to be the standard. All right, direct distance entry. So we're now right here, right, with the lower left of the right view. We're going to track 2.25. Going to track straight up. I'll grab that corner. I'm going to track over. I'm going to track from here. You'll notice my virtual machine. I'm running all of this through a virtual machine from school. The last couple of days they've been a little bit laggy, and I notice for students too, it's been that way. If you end up just having trouble, you can always go to students.autodesk.com and just download a version and run it locally on your own machine if you're just finding it too difficult with the virtual machines. Let's come over 0.5. I've never had the issue before. I've been using them for a couple of years now, and it's only been last couple of days that I've noticed things have been a little laggy, although they're not as bad as they were yesterday. So, but you'll notice when I try to get to the O-snap, sometimes I kind of overrun it a little bit or such. All right, I'm going to right-click to be done. So I can't, there's no more object lines I can draw over here, so let's come up and work on the top view. I'll just tap the space bar to get back into the line command. We'll track up, once again, 2 units. Hover and track. Now for here, I'm going to track up 2.25. I'm looking at the top of my part. So this distance is 2.25, and that is dimensioned right here. Remember, and we'll talk about this more, we talked about it yesterday, but remember, in mechanical, we're going to dimension a part in the view where the feature best shows up in true shape. And this distance right here, 2.25, best shows up in true shape on this right side. But it is the same distance here, 2.25. You'd be surprised, even after saying this, how many times a student will make this distance 2.5, and then they get it back and have to redo it, right? So, well, they have to redo the whole thing, just that feature, right? All right, so we can track up, and we can come here. And just to be clear on that, I'm stuck inside my virtual machine, and that's all happening on my PC. So remember, it's dimensioned. This distance is dimensioned 2.25 in the handout, right? And so if I, right, so that dimension right there, right? So if we're looking at this in the front and then we go to the top, well, you can see this distance is that same exact distance, right? That is 2.25. If I rotate, if I rotate to the right and look at it, there it is right there, right? So it's that same 2.25 distance. And that's why this line is 2.25. Don't make it 2.5. All right, so let's come back here, and let's open up the browser again. Let's see here. Where did I have it? All right, I don't know. Virtual machines have just been acting a little bit strange the last couple of days. All right, so it looks like I have to, I'm gonna have to go and open up that. Actually, I don't even have to do that. I could just browse. I can just browse and go to the Rod Support here. Can't open it with with Adobe because it asks me to log in, and I am just sick of logging in. All I do is log in now for classes. So what I'll do is I can say open with, and we'll just open it up with Firefox. Firefox doesn't make me log in. All right, let's bring this over here. We'll close this. Let's close that, and let's make that a little bit smaller. Okay, fantastic. All right, so there's our top view. L enter. I'm just going to roll my mouse a little bit. Pan. L enter. I can hover. Track 0.5. Right. Track. Make sure the intersection O snap is on, and you can kind of see where the virtual machine's getting a little laggy, and it clunked and then went right past that point. So again, if that's driving you nuts and you're a student in the class, just download a copy of AutoCAD. And the link's right in your announcements on Brightspace how to do it. All right, circle command, and that has a radius of 1. By default, the circle command is asking for a radius, so I'll enter 1. TR for trim. I'll click and I'll click. And again, in the lecture, we spent a lot of time talking about the trim command, extend, using boundaries, things like that I'm not talking about here. Okay, so let's see, geometry-wise, we can now project these points down to the front view. So we can project here and here. And we can project. And again, if this keeps happening, I'll just end up downloading a copy of AutoCAD on my machine too, to make these videos smoother. All right, so I don't need the edges anymore, so I could fill it. Radius, so I can just pick radius 0.5 it is. It tells me it's 0.5 right here. And I can click, tap the space bar to get right back into the same command, click, and I can click. And now we have those filleted edges. All right, what do we need now? We need center marks. So I'm going to switch. I'll switch to my center layer. Now a couple things we have to set, and again, not to keep harping on this, but I go into fully understanding dim sen and the DCE commands, in the lecture. But I'm going to change the dim send variable to dash 0.09. This is going to give me the extension lines. So now when I do DCE, I don't just get the center mark, right? Just the crosshair. I also get the extension lines that extend through the arc that the center mark or the crosshair is marking. All right, now, if the job of these extension lines is to go through the arc, then this one shouldn't be here because there is no arc down here. We want drawings that are clear, concise, and unambiguous. That needs to go away. Now, you probably don't have to look in the ASME standard to find out this. Right? I was set to 0.09. So what that means is that, well, let's just do this quick. Again, I did it in the lecture, but let's just come here. That's 0.09. This is not a proper dim style, by the way, right? So this is 0.09. And then the extension, the distance that the extension line extends past the arc, you probably guessed it, 0.09. All right. So you probably don't have to look in the standard to say, hey, do you think it's a good idea to have a secondary line overlapping an object line? And it's a horrible idea, right? These are object lines. Why would I overlap them with secondary? So if you cannot extend past the arc 0.09, what's the next best thing? Well, the next best thing would be to go shy 0.09. So since I'm past 0.09, I can grab the grip, make it hot, 0.18, and now I've got a 0.09 gap. You could also use the break command, which I show in the lecture. But nice and easy to do it this way. Okay. Fantastic. All right, so let's come right down here. We'll do DCE. I'll pop that in. I'm going to use the copy command. Now these are center marks. They mark the center of an arc or a circle. Now I need center lines in a couple of places. And the center line is saying that I have a hole that goes through. So I have a hole that goes through right here, and I can track over. Now you notice there's a little teeny gap here where there isn't in your handout, and that's absolutely fine. And then I could also come over here, and I want this dead center, right? I want this in the middle. I don't have anything to track from. If I had put my hidden lines in first, I would. So what I could do is I could shift right click and use the midway between 2 points O snap, and I could click here, and dump that perfectly between 2 points. Fantastic. I'm going to hit the space bar to execute the copy command one more time. I'll pick the base point here, and we'll come over. We'll track straight down. And as soon as I get the two vectors, again, you can see it's a little bit laggy, I can dump that in. Okay, so I've got my center marks and my 3 center lines. Let's freeze those, get those right out of the way, and we'll put our hidden lines in now. So I can freeze that layer. And now it's just a matter of the line command. Now I need to track to the quadrant. I need to show the upper and lower quadrants of this circle, of this hole, on the right side. And now I don't have quadrant running, so we will turn on quadrant so it's a running O snap. And now I can track. I'll come over, click, and I'll click. And I'm not exact. Did I forget to? I think I created the. So I'm not really sure if I'm exactly getting the where I need to. Because of the lag here. I also obviously forgot to set my line type. Let's come over here and oops. So let's load. I'll tap H to get down to the hidden. We want hidden 2, and then I'll select it, and voila! Now I've got those hidden lines that I want. All right, I'm going to tap the space bar, and from here I can track straight up. From here I can track straight up. Spacebar to get out of the command, spacebar to get in, although I could just right click my mouse because I set that up earlier with the right click customization. Now lastly, there's one more hidden line, and the hidden line is what? It's the back side of this arc. So as we look at this part from the right side, we have to show, right, the back edge of this quadrant of the arc over here. Right? So how far in is that? Well, it's the radius of the arc, or it would be in 1. Now, you'd be surprised how many times I get this. L enter, and soon be like, hey, look at that, there's a midpoint. Let me just put it there. Or, hey, there's a midpoint down here. Let me just slap it there. That's fantastic. No, right? It's one unit in. So you have to use L enter, hover, direct distance entry, 1, enter, and then that's where that would go. All right, I think that's it. I was just going to ask you guys, like I'm in a class, whether I'm missing anything, but you can't respond to me, so that's not going to help at all. One thing to note. Let me do this. I'm going to lay this out quick just to show you this. And this came up in class yesterday. So from last week, we had 20 AutoCAD 22 installed on the virtual machines, and this week the kind folks at IT upgraded to 2023, and they changed where the paper settings are. So let's go to modify here. And we're going to always high quality PDF and 11 by 17 for this class, and forever 1117's been at the bottom, right? But now ANZB 11 by 17 is right there at the top. Don't worry about the other settings for now. Close. Obviously we want to make sure that is on our viewport layer. And did I make the viewport layer no plot? I think I might have forgot that too. Ooh. All right, so now if we type PRE for preview, right, our viewport does not plot. We don't want to. It's an AutoCAD tool. It's not part of your drawing. All right, so I can resize this. Double click to go to floating model space. Let's move over here. I'll turn off the grid, and now I can set my scale. Right, as we talked about in class yesterday, if you didn't have this drop down, you could do what? You could do zoom, and I could type 1xp. And you can see the lag, right? So 1xp would give me a 1 scale, right? If I wanted a half scale, it would be zoom, right? 0.5 xp or 1/2 xp. That would give me a half scale. Right? So zoom 1 xp fits absolutely fine. Use your drop down if you have it, but it's good to understand how to create a paper space scale if you don't have that button. And now we need to lock our viewport always, right? The first thing you do after you set that scale is lock that viewport. Obviously, if you have to pan to get your model in the center a little bit, that's fine too. All right, now we can pop our title block in, switch to paper space, insert. Remember, I can double click inside my floating viewport. I'm in floating model space. Double click outside, I'm in paper space. And I don't have it loaded up here, so I can browse, and I think it's in my downloads. Let's bump up one. Downloads, and I think I grabbed it yesterday, which is right here. We'll put that in at 0,0. And for me, this would be what? PR02. Click OK. Obviously, your inserted drawing, it inserts on the current layer. Now, your title block came in with its own layer, which is border, so we're going to put that right on the border. You need to fill out the rest of your text and stuff, right? So make sure your title block's fully filled out. If you have any trouble with that, refer back to the layout video that I created, and that shows me creating a text style and adding all the text and doing a layout. We can do a quick PRE for preview. And that looks fantastic, right? I can see my line weights look good. Probably use the proper layers. We talk about ways in the lecture that you can check to make sure your geometry is on the proper layers and such. All right, good luck.